How's it going, everyone? It's Geoff Chrysler, a detail enthusiast, back with my next episode of my BN1 restoration. And as you can see, it's been a very productive week. Pretty much finished all the bright work. I'm waiting to put the rest of the chrome surrounds and lenses on the lights until everything's adjusted and working properly. My headlights aren't working for some reason, so I gotta hunt down what the issue is. And of course I want to adjust them to get them aimed properly before I seal them in there. Yeah, and also I'm trying to decide if I'm going to continue going with these LED bulbs for everything, or if I'm going to keep the stock incandescent bulbs just to make things easier. Still haven't decided. We've got some bugs to work out, but man, does she ever look good with all the new chrome. So I'll show you what I've done. Let's get into it. Okay, so I've just gone back and changed these front snaps, the lift the dot snaps, these guys right here. I had some new ones in there, and you can see the difference, how much taller and fatter they are than the originals. And my car came with a bunch of new ones installed, so that's what I had. But I had a drawer of old original snaps, so I went through and I managed to find two originals that I was able to clean up and replate. So that looks much better. It's much shorter and makes a visual difference there. So happy to have that. And as you can see, I've pulled through the windshield wiper bezels and installed those. So they, as you remember, I had installed the motor, which sits just under here, and it has its mechanism going across there. I had kind of installed the motor, and the mechanism was just sitting, hanging below the shroud there. So now that the paint is done, I was able to poke those through and just put on the bezels. And those are my original aluminum bezels. They're not in the greatest of shape, but that's what early BN1 bezels are. They were just bare aluminum like that. They were not plated. Of course, this, the nut is chrome plated. So I've put in a new gasket underneath, and I've got a new rubber seal that I still need to put onto that shaft to finish them off. So there's my rubber seals on top. Those rubbers are virtually unattainium at this point. Roger Moment used to make these. I was able to find one last set for a guy. So glad to have those. And they are quite a bit smaller than later cars that had the later style mechanisms in them. So yeah, that's the style unique to early BN1. And one more thing I got in was these the bezels for the side screen mountings. So just had to screw those into the top of the door really carefully. I actually used a special tool here for it's universal. It's for removing dashboard gauge things like the bezels around there on later cars, and around here those are screwed in with this special tool. So I was able to just put a fat round file down through the center so it wouldn't slide off, and just kind of hold it in the center there with the shaft going through the middle, and then turn it really carefully. So those came out nice, and they are actually, you can see when you look at them, they're favor one side, so you can turn it to whatever they need to do to fit the side screen best. So they're all like that. So my one biggest leak on this car so far has been from that gearbox switch. So as you can see, I've just pulled out the old switch, which was leaking from its casing. It was the screw-in type of wire connectors. The new ones, the only new ones I could find are these terminal style connectors. So I'm gonna have to put terminals onto my wires there, but at least it's in there now and it's not leaking. So this car is no longer leaving any puddles on the floor at this point, which is really good. We'll see how long that lasts, but did solve that one nasty leak I had. So So I'm just preparing to start installing the windshield and the posts, and I've got the windshield posts masked off. I've masked off the upper chrome sections because, believe it or not, the bases that bolt to the car were actually painted body color, including their hardware. So I've masked off the chrome sections, and I'll be spraying the lower sections. And luckily, I got some of my actual Healy blue paint put into some aerosol cans by a local paint shop. Really great thing to have. Thanks, Harry. And yeah, highly recommended whenever you get your paint done. Just have some extra, in touch-up bottles like this, with a little brush applicator on the inside of the lid. I've got some of that, and then I've also got this aerosol can for these larger pieces. So good to have. We'll get these painted up and then bolted to the car. And just like that, Healy blue. I painted all the hardware and the stanchions. Really nice paint, actually. Went on beautifully. So glad to have that done. Okay, so you can see I've got these nicely painted, these stands, and I'm just about to install them to the car, and I've just cut out some, just from some scrap thin neoprene rubber that I had, just some base rubbers. I don't seem to find these available anywhere, although they are listed as unavailable in certain parts catalogs, so I've just made them like I say, it is some scrap neoprene, so it is thin and it is quite soft neoprene, so these should squish down because it's quite a tight fit. But it'll help protect my paint and also obviously create a nice seal along those bases. Okay, so there is the windshield installed. Wow, that went very smoothly. Of course, I had fit it before while it was in the body shop, so I knew kind of how this thing likes to go, and I remembered that both feet need to be kicked in like that to fit properly. So as you can see, I bolted it in. I made sure to get these top bolts in and tight, and then just got these bottom bolts started and allowed it to kick out as much as I can. And actually, the next step here, as I go to start interior stuff in a few weeks, one of the first things to go in is there's a piece of Furflex draft seal that does this entire flange, and it glues to the inside edge here, and then as it gets to the top here, there's a cut in its tail, and the tail moves to the outside, and the tail actually gets stuffed underneath the windshield post there, so that'll help keep that kicked out. And that's fine that these are just loose right now. Just the top ones up here are tight. So, but that went really well. So both windshield posts installed and painted the bottom sections as original. And now we can carry on with other things. A few things I can move on with now is, as you can see, I can put in this piece of Fender Beading, so it tucks under just the first ½ inch here, and then I'm going to have the finished edge just stop short right there. And then once that's in, I can tighten this fender up and close up that gap. So I can put those in next. I've also got the little curved chrome washers for here. Those just came back from the chrome shop the other day, so I can put those in. And what else? Oh yeah, I think I mentioned I replaced these guys with the correct original shorter ones. However, they're supposed to be chrome plated, so I'm going to take those out and get them plated. But yeah, anyway, moving along bit at a time. I've still got to secure these guys down. Just waiting for some dum-dum to come in. And then I can also secure the rear view mirror. And for securing the rear view mirror, I have to make a little plate that has the holes drilled and tapped. I didn't have that when I took my car apart, so just have to make one, simple enough. So yeah, looking really good. Really happy that that windshield came out so nice, and that seal on the bottom, I'm very happy. These notoriously often have a wrinkle here, and I was able to stretch that and get it really nice. So hopefully it lasts. Hopefully it doesn't warm in the sun and create a wrinkle later on. I don't know, but it's good now, so I'm happy with it. So. And as you can see, I've now installed the rear view mirror. Really happy about that. I just, like I say, I made up just a small plate. I just drilled and tapped the holes using the bracket as a template and was able to slide it in underneath and located the holes, and pretty straightforward. And I've finally got that guy attached as well, and the demisters installed. Again, I just used some sealant on the demisters. I didn't use Dum Dum. I decided to use sealant instead because it also acts as a glue and will help hold them down firmer. So I just clamped them into place and using some rags and let it dry overnight, so they look really nice now. And so that finishes that area. I can basically, all that's left is to install the cockpit rails here. I can do the forward one, although I'm going to wait on the doors until I put the upholstery in first. And next, to finish off the rear fender beading, I am going to fit this rear cockpit rail just temporarily, so I know exactly where the beading starts here. I can make a little tape mark and install that, and then that'll finish the rear of the car pretty much, except for the boot seal. And of course, bumpers. Wow, look at that. Front cockpit rail is installed, and it looks just beautiful. That's my original cockpit rails, all of them. I've also just temporarily installed the rear one so that I can mark where the fender beading comes up to. So that line there. But yeah, these are all my original cockpit moldings that I had polished to a mirror shine and then anodized by Altec Anodizing. And they did just a beautiful job. So that finishes off that front dash area, and I'm so pleased. It looks just beautiful and correct. So the one thing I have yet to do is my rear view mirror there. The two brackets are supposed to be engraved on the back with a number. So I'm going to be, and it should say Eversure, and then the part number, like I say. So I'm going to just take off the mirror part and send those two bracket pieces in, and it just gets engraved on the back there, Eversure, with like M633 or something like that. I can't remember the number, but should be a quick and easy thing. Shouldn't cost too much. I have a really good engraver here in town, so yeah. Looking beautiful. So now I can continue on with the rear fender beading. So I've just marked the front tips. So now I'll remove that cockpit rail, keep it safe, and tape it up and loosen off the fenders and get ready for these rear fender beadings. So just carrying on with things on the rear of the car, I've just threaded through the wiring for the tail lights and license plate lamp. Of course, I've had to put in a proper grommet there, so that's installed. And now I've added the license plate bracket. I did use a bit of sealant just on the inside so that water's not getting in between there. I'm trying to do that wherever I can. You know, I want this car to be an all-weather car. I don't want to feel worried in the rain. So I want to seal it off wherever I can. And you can see here it is on the inside. One thing I'll point out that the body shop did here for me is you can see all these rivets. They're actually pop rivets, but they filled in the centers to make them look like solid rivets, which is what the factory had. So little details like that I'm really happy about. Same thing with this flange along the bottom here. I have yet to, so all Heelys, hundreds and 3000s and 106s, they all had this lower flange here painted flat black after, no matter what the color. Well, obviously if you had black you didn't get it, but all the other colors, that was one thing Donald Healy wanted to hide, and so he just went along with a paintbrush and hand painted this edge black to mute it. And it really makes a difference when you're following a Healy on the road. It helps just hide things under there and gets rid of that nasty rivet edge. Okay, so just preparing to put in the last bit of fender beading on this rear fender. So I've loosened off all the bolts and spreading open the gap all the way around. As you can see, I got this side in already. That came out really nicely. And yeah, got the fenders all tightened up. I tell you, the bolts that are right in the top of the fender here are by far the hardest to access on probably the whole car. It's really tricky, and you can only get about 1/8 of a turn with each thing. Anyway, we got her there. So this is ready to go. I'm just preparing the fender beading itself. So here you can see how the beading comes. It comes with that this tape that you've got to, this protective coating that you got to peel off. So I've been peeling it off. I've already pre-bent all of the little tabs so that they're gonna curve out like to the outside and go over the flange of the shroud, same as the front did. So they're all pre-bent, and I've just spaced them all out relatively evenly. And then as I'm peeling this back, I'm putting a little dab of tape on each one just to hold them in position so they don't start sliding around on you. And then we can offer it up. And of course, because the curve is already in the beading, you've got to kind of offer it up from the back and just get them all kind of just started, so they're not going to be flinging around scratching your paint. Get them all kind of started, work your way up to the front and find out exactly where that front needs to be. As you can see, you shouldn't have to cut this rear beading at all, so that's the nice finish end, and my cockpit rail should come just like this to it. So and then underneath you can see these, they don't stop here, they go right to the end of their travel, so kind of in the middle there. So that's how they finish. And yeah, these came out really nice and tight. So we'll get into that and finish off that last bit of beading. Okay, so I'm just preparing to finish off all of the fender beading with the front pieces that just go under the headlights. There's some little short pieces here, and they are not the same type of beading as the rest of the car. They're this black T-shaped rubber stuff. So I got a roll of the same stuff. This is for an MGA, so it comes in this light gray. You can get it from Moss, and this is enough for dozens of cars. So I've just cut out my pieces. You can see the profile, it's like a T shape. And then I've just painted this with vinyl spray paint. That's the SEM coat that I usually use for upholstery stuff, so it sticks really well to vinyls and materials like this. So sprayed that last night, so these pieces are ready to go. You only see the end face here. And so same deal as the fender beading. You just had to loosen off the bolts here, and then I can slide this in. And I'll have to make cuts in this to go around where the bolts go through. So I'll mark those, and anyway, they just go top to bottom and top to bottom, filling those, and then the lights go over top of them. And there you go. So I've just installed these front piping pieces, easy peasy. So now that those are in, I can go ahead and start installing some of the lighting. I can put in the front valance, the grille, everything else can come now. So we'll get into it. Look at that. So I've just installed the front valance, and wow, getting better every time. So very nicely fit. It has that nice the rubber bead that closes up the gap there, and there's some little rubber pieces that will go in there. I still have to get those. I think I saved my original somewhere in a drawer, so I still got to get those. They're like a brown rubber. But anyway, yeah, it's got all of its original hardware under there. I just got to paint the head's body color. And man, so next thing, the last thing I'm going to install here is the grill. I've just fitted up and it's going to be beautiful, but I want to install all the lighting first. Reason being, I've got to connect the headlights to those pigtails way up there, and it's much easier to see the colors, and because that's as far as I can pull them there. It's much easier to connect them when I can reach through the grill and see the colors. Right side's a lot longer, it's a lot easier to do, but man, this left side is going to be pretty tricky to reach up in there and plug in all the wires. And of course, with all of these fender bolts going down there, there's actually going to be wire clips installed in some of those that hold the headlight and parking light pigtails, including one up in the top there. There's another clip up there, so that's where some of my spare wiring harness clips here are going to be used, is for some of those spots. So we'll get those lights installed with all the clips and routing of the wires properly, and then I can seal it in with the grill. And I've now installed the front bumper. Temporarily. This is also an original bumper, and really glad to have it. And of course the front bumpers are quite straight. So I'm using the bumper brackets, original bumper brackets that came with my car, and my car originally had been hit in this front corner, so it was quite distorted here, and the brackets were quite twisted. And I've tried to straighten them out as best I can, but what I'm noticing now is that the whole bumper seems to be offset to the left side of the car. You can see how it's sticking out here, almost even with the wheel. And on this side, it's not nearly as far. So the whole thing needs to move to the right side of the car. So yeah, that's gonna need some work, because both bumper brackets are, they're hard pieces of angle iron, and so they're going to need to be heated up and adjusted. So that'll be coming off. So adjusting those bumper brackets is going to be a later endeavor. I'll just leave it as it is for now. So just preparing to install the front parking lights on my 100. I've just kind of pushed this in here. It's pre-assembled with the pigtails, as I showed you before. And I'm gonna drill the holes for it, and then also I'm gonna mark these beadings right here. If I can get it to make a mark. There we go. And that just wipes off. But I'm gonna take a razor blade and just taper that underneath so that it's flat to the body, so that this thing can lay flatter. I want it to look like it's going under. I want it to continue going underneath, but I want to taper it so it's a better fit. So just doing that now before I install it. And there we go. Luckily I was able to actually find my original holes under there. I got in there with a light and was able to see faint indentations in the paintwork, so I was able to just drill them through. So they're in the right spots, and yeah, just screwed them in with these little screws, nuts on the backside with lock washers. And now I can route the wires in here. There'll be a wiring clip right here, and helps hold it up there, and then there's another one up in the top there that links it to the headlight pigtail, so everything stays clear of the wheels there. Okay, and so the headlights are now installed, as along with these parking lamps, and pretty straightforward. You just offer up the bowls with, obviously, with the seal in behind it, and it has these 4 screws going around. And of course, the adjustment screws have big studs that fit into the larger holes in the bodywork. And then you just fit it in, and it's attached on the back side. You can see with these little brass nuts going around. Let's just get in here. So there's the brass nuts, and of course the wiring just goes up, and there's that wiring clip that joins both the parking lamp and headlight pigtails together, and it installs with a separate screw and nut up there. It's not one of the Fender screws like those. So, and yeah, little brass nuts, and then there's those plastic caps that cover the actual adjustment screw studs, and there's that wiring clip for how that goes. Yeah, and then they just go up and attach to the plugs just on the other side of the inner wheel arch there. So now that the headlights are in, I'm just gonna wait until I can adjust them. So I'm gonna roll it to the back of the shop and turn the lights on and adjust them against the door here so that they've got a good aim, and that just uses those 3 adjustment screws, top and sides, to adjust the light. And once those are adjusted, then I can put the chrome surround on. And I've got my a pair of original chrome surrounds here. So they get a little rivet in the top hole right there. And then this bottom hole gets a little chrome flathead screw here, like these. And that's what secures those. So, just got the rear bumper installed. It's looking beautiful. In my previous video, I had shown how the bumper assembles, and I got all the brackets assembled with the overriders and those special hardware. So that was pretty simple. Just had to slide on these rubber boot grommets onto the brackets first, and had them pulled back like all as far as they would go. They were flipped inside out sort of thing, and then carefully offered it up with the brackets already pre-installed. And as you can see, yeah, they just bolt in place. Took some coercing. I used just like a fat center punch to locate the holes, and had to loosen off all the bolts on the bumpers themselves and get them in there. And then once it was all in, just tightened it all down, and there you go. And so I've still just got to, I've got to hook up the wires in my license plate light here. But other than that, it's nicely installed and nice and straight and centered. And this is an original bumper that I got, and you can see, as I was mentioning in my previous video, originals follow the curvature of the rear of the car really nicely. It's nice and even, whereas most modern repros are too straight and they come really close to the body there, so that light barely, it's usually touching the bodywork, if not completely fouling. So it's nice to have these original bumpers. They fit beautifully, as they should. And yeah, really nice to have that installed. Okay, so I'm just getting ready to install the tail lights now. You can see I got both pigtails already hanging out of the opening, and I've just cut them to an even length and bared the end of the wires. And now I've got to first feed on the rubber boot. So I had to drill out the little holes in the ends for the wires. So now I got to feed those wires into here so that it's all hanging out, and then I can install the little bucket terminal ends, and then wire it up. Here's the fixture and the lens. And those lenses just fit into this rubber boot, and the whole thing screws in place with these 3 screws around the perimeter. So you can see those. And there you can see I've got it wired up now. I just fed the wires through those little bullets, spread them open, and then put a little bit of electrical grease on the whole bullet end and shoved it into the terminals and pushing it home with a pair of pliers. So now I've just put the rubber in and lined up the 3 holes with the holes in the body, and now I can feed this all back inside. And this is a 2-hand job, so I'll have to put that on the camera, but you get the drift. I'll feed this back inside and screw it in place, and then I can reinstall the lenses and chrome. And there we go, both lights are installed, minus the lenses and chrome bits, of course, but yeah, tricky going in there. I'm having a problem now that it's in there. I got to take it out again because you see the 2 little connectors at the end. Well, they're spring loaded, and one of them is not springing at all. It's not moving, it's stuck, and I can't even get a bulb in there. So I'm gonna withdraw the whole thing and see what's going on. Something must be pinched. So the other one went in okay, and you'll see I'm using those LED bulbs to save on power, and they're a lot brighter. So once the lens is on, you'll never know, other than it'll be brighter. So yeah, that's how those Lucas 488 lights go together. And you got to use like a sharp tool to pull away the rubber as you nestle down the lens, and same thing with the chrome. And it's a tricky job, but just take your time. So just preparing the license plate light. So as you can see, I'm using these LED bulbs, and I've wired it up with a separate little 2-wire thing. So ground being black is grounded on the frame. You got to make sure you get that right, because you can destroy the electrics of the whole car if that gets shorted backwards. And of course the positive is there on its own live terminal there. And then, so I pre-wire it, and then I put a bit of plastic heat shrink, which I have yet to shrink. And that is gonna be what feeds through the grommet there. And then I'll connect it in the car with a couple single connectors. And then I can bolt it all up to the bumper. Okay, and so that's the license plate light installed, and you can see the little black plastic wire going through. Here it is coming through, and then I've done it up to the main harness with those 2 connectors there. So that's all ready to go. I may later eventually probably put an inline fuse in there just to protect it in case if I ever get hit from behind. That is the danger with these, with that wiring like that. If those 2 short, then you'll short the whole system out, and you can ruin your electrics. So yeah, it's recommended. Like later on, they actually did that to production cars. They put a little inline fuse there. So I'm gonna get one and put it in there eventually. But now we should be able to try the lighting. I've got the tail lights in, and the license plate light is now wired in properly, and I've got the headlights and parking lights installed. So let's see how she goes. The battery has been off this entire time until I finish wiring, so I can go switch it on. On. And yes, both tail lights are working. The license plate light is working. Beautiful. And at the front, yeah, we've got the parking lamps working. I believe the ignition has to be on for the headlights to work, but that's great. We have lights. Look at that, the grille is now fitted along with the headlights and parking lamps today. So she is pretty much done with all the bright work. Of course, I've got to figure out, I've still got to add like the headlight surrounds, which I'm going to wait until I've first of all got the headlights working, which they're not right now. Everything else works, all the other lighting works except for the headlights for some reason. So I've got to chase that down, find out what's going on. Yeah, everything else is working. Of course, because I tried using those LED bulbs, they came with, I got a set for Austin Healey, and it came with its own flasher unit. And what I've noticed is if I put in regular incandescent bulbs with the stock flasher unit, they work properly. But with those LED bulbs, they can't handle it. It needs that smaller, that electronic flasher unit to be installed. So yeah, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do there yet either. I might just convert it all back to regular incandescent bulbs and stay with that just to be safe, so I know. And if I want to later on, I can switch to the LED and change the flasher altogether. So, but other than that, yeah, the bright work is on. Like I say, I just want to sort out this lighting, decide what I'm going to do before I finish off putting the lenses on and the chrome surrounds. And I've decided I've ordered a new pair of front bumper brackets from Kilmartin. Might as well get them now. I know that they're going to be right if they're coming from Kilmartin, so just get a new pair. I don't have to worry about trying to bend them up and get them right. It just sounds like a nightmare of labor, so I'd rather just get a new set. Be quick about it, and yeah, so that will fix the alignment of that front bumper. It's not, yeah, it's pretty noticeable when you get straight on. You can see where the overriders are landing. But other than that, it's pretty good. So yeah, that is the bright work. So over the next few weeks, I'll be able to get into installing the interior. Of course, this being New Year's Eve, come Monday, we'll be back to regular upholstery work for customers. So work on my car is going to slow down substantially. But it was nice to take the Christmas, New Year's week to just focus on my stuff, take a little winter vacation, and wow, did it ever turn out nice. Loving all this chrome work, and wow, the car just looks beautiful and runs beautifully too. So until next time, I'm Geoff Chrysler, a detail enthusiast. Happy New Year. We'll see you all again.